ready? Okay, we will call the city council workshop for Tuesday, August 17th to order. And the first item on this is here for budget 2022 budget discussions. Jenny has some opening comments.
Well, I just, thank you, Mayor Ryan. Good evening, members of the council. I just included that on the agenda in case something came up that would be different from last week, but I don't have anything different than we'll approach this the same way we did last week. We'll hear from planning and zoning, parks and rec, and then a bunch of just admin departments, clerk finance,
Okay.
and we'll go from there. So,
Very good.
okay.
Brittany, you're up. You can come and sit or you can stand.
I feel like standing is more respectful. So as you can probably tell, my budget itself, just the operating budget, aside from wages and benefits, really didn't change. Yeah, can you not hear me? You want to stand closer? So we did have 3 line items as far as operating budget that changed. Nothing drastic, a couple $100 here and there. The biggest change was for professional services. That was mostly because with the year we had this year, I really don't know what to anticipate for next year. So I just budgeted as we're going to have a duplicate year with the amount of development and CUPs and all that good stuff involved. So that one is a little more flexible. We won't know if that's really what we're going to spend until we're done. I did have 3 items that were kind of like the bigger items that are, I'm drawing a blank on the name of them now. I apologize. The future land use map and the housing study are the 2 really big items. I am working with a company to get some better dollar figures, but that was just kind of my general numbers that I got from talking to some other cities who had done similar projects. Those, the future housing study and the housing study were both part of our comprehensive plan goals within 12 months when we approved it in 2019. So that's why I felt that it was important to get the ball rolling on getting that actually completed. Our future land use map hasn't been updated in about 40-ish years. So that's something I feel we really need to get done. And then also my other item on there is directional signage. This is primarily for downtown. We've had quite a few businesses reach out wanting offsite signs. Staff and the commission really weren't willing to change that ordinance just because it's kind of a can of worms once you start rolling, and it's very hard to limit and regulate and all those good things. So we were thinking a central one sign, whether it be like a kiosk like you see at the Mall of America, where I could say I'm looking for restaurants or retail or whatever, and it would give you information. Or we've also discussed digital display sign either by the roundabout or on the chamber building, where we can have city business listed, chamber business listed, businesses listed. Or we've also discussed wayfinding signs, which would be up north feel, just be arrows saying retail this way, food this way. Keep it general though, just because things happen, businesses change, people offer new services, all that good stuff. So as of now, I only budgeted 2,500 for that because I don't quite know the exact avenue we're going to go down. So it's kind of more of a jumping off point. I expect the total to be closer to either 5 or 7 grand, all said and done once we have a better path planned. Any questions?
One question on that, on the directional signage. If you were to do a kiosk or you were to do whatever you end up doing, say, I remember the Legion was one of the big people that wanted to get to point people down there. Do they charge a person to put their business name on there per se?
Yeah, that's what I want to know too.
My thinking at this time is no, to keep it more general, to just direct people that there are more stores.
Okay.
Just because the turnover and, like I said, people sometimes add new services, and then we don't want it to be a revolving door of changing the sign either, because that costs money.
Okay.
I guess I'm kind of just trying to think this through. I mean, a directional sign's not going to help the Legion. Don't believe. I mean, I'm just trying to. First question is this the city's responsibility? And the second question is there a need? Most people just walk up and down the sidewalks and figure out kind of where they want to go. It's not like in a mall where you have different levels and different wings, and it's just a street. You know, so I guess especially if we're talking, you know, the amount of money. So and you can keep going. I mean, that's what this, but that's just kind of my thoughts off the top of my head. So.
Well, I've talked to Tim next door with bike rentals. He's way off the beaten path and he has been trying, what can he do? I know he's put up those sandwich boards, but those are, our ordinance will not allow off property, and it would be kind of nice because we are a business friendly city, or want to be, is to have something to direct them to those places. That's the way I'm looking at it. Am I correct?
Yes, my primary goals would be to reach kind of the fringe areas off the main drag. So the Legion, the hardware store, the bike rental place, gatherings, A&W, kind of give them a little more light. Because our downtown is very often seen just as, you know, one street, 2 blocks long, when really we kind of have some great businesses kind of off on the fringes as well. So that would be the hopeful intent, is to help those businesses.
Have you talked to the chamber about it also, and what are their thoughts on it?
I have historically. I haven't talked to the new chamber director. I did talk to the previous 2 about it. It seemed promising in my conversations with them, but we never really hammered down a path. Pending what you guys feel, I was hoping to get a meeting with Pam, the new chamber director, to kind of get some more feedback. Maybe that's a survey to the businesses, or just a, you know, stop by and talk and get feedback kind of thing. But I do think that getting business feedback will be an important part of that as well.
I was gonna say, I didn't intend to get into it this deep, but you know, the chamber would obviously be a place to help share expenses too, or whatever, but.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's a good idea. And if you're talking more to direct people to certain places, I think that would do more, but just continue.
Mayor Ryan, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Were you intending for the 2,500 to be spent next year, or were you looking to like start a little fund to then,
Yeah.
so maybe in a year or 2, you'd have enough money, depending on how all those discussions played out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This was kind of my start putting money away, just because I didn't have a great grasp on how much we'd need to spend.
Sure.
But my hope is in this winter to have a firm number, at least a firm range.
Okay, well, this will also play into something I will discuss regarding downtown later. So just so the council knows too, and bigger discussion.
I'm also looking at wages, salaries, part-time employee. 52, yeah, 5,200. Is that what it is?
5,300,
53.
or no, sorry, 52. You were on the correct line. I was not.
Oh, okay. So is that again, just planning commission? Okay, all right. So that's not an actual employee other than the commission itself. Okay. Did you do anything looking at, or have you discussed that at all? About a part-time person, shared per people, that kind of.
Not for next year, no.
Okay, all right. Okay. That's why I was wondering if that, because I noticed it disappeared in 2021 and then it reappeared in 2022, so.
I think it's just a line. It's on a different line
Oh,
from the one below, so it's,
okay, all right.
yeah.
Is that something we should be looking at for next year?
So I did include someone in planning and zoning in that 10-year organizational chart, so it's definitely on our radar.
Mhm.
One new thing Brittany's going to start tracking is the number of inspections that she does,
Mhm.
because that would also help provide a picture of how much time she's going out to site visits and doing those things, because I would envision someone would be able to help with that in the future. So we wanted to have a little more data to kind of show the different things she was doing, but it wasn't a high priority for us for next year. I think we're getting there slowly, but
Okay.
that was kind of where we landed.
Brittany, if you had to trim out of your budget for next year, say 5%, what would you look at trimming?
I couldn't even take a guess at you, to be completely honest. Really, the only thing that we could kind of cut would either be schooling and training, or
It's about 7 grand, just to give you perspective.
yeah, there's not really much in my budget that's extra. It's kind of just, we have to do the legal postings. It's not an option. I have to be able to get to site visits. It has to be done, kind of thing. So there's not really a lot of extra meat and potatoes on that.
And professional services is mostly attorneys.
Attorneys and engineering.
And this also doesn't reflect what we are reimbursed from the developers. So we do bill them when we have city time into, or, professional service time. So we see the cost here, but we also are reimbursed at least a certain percentage. So even though this is going up, there's a good chance that that gets recouped.
Do you have an idea how much we get recouped? Average?
Maybe half?
I would say half on the low end. I've been pretty stringent on
Sure.
getting those billed, just because, I don't feel tax money should be used towards, one developer's plat or something like that.
Shouldn't that be a line item is coming in? for
Is
that
it's just not
department?
in her,
It's not in the
we can't
budget.
net the two.
Right.
We have to have it on a revenue line, and then
Right.
this is the expenditure line. So yes,
And it is on the revenue line.
it is, yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
yep, that makes sense.
So to put it in perspective, the things that we wouldn't get reimbursed for would be pretty much like my lack of knowledge items. So if I had to reach out to the attorney to get clarification on a legal item, or having Woodseth review a plat or a water management plan or something like that, those are, well, no, the water management plan would be reimbursed, but my legal questions wouldn't be.
But even that being said, this 8 grand's taken in account that we're also getting money coming in. I mean, that's so.
Any further questions?
You're gonna get off easy.
I know. Thank you, guys.
You guys can skim it real quick while Kiki pulls up the PowerPoint. Since it's kind of small font on here.
Under safety concerns, are these the boards on the,
We'll get to it.
okay,
We're gonna start on slide 1, Nisswa Parks and Rec. All right, well, that's getting pulled up. Nisswa Park and Rec. So we were tasked with all the department heads thinking of our grander plan. Starting with that, we have our mission and our vision here. These were taken from the comprehensive plan that was done. So guiding principles that I'm looking at as we're going forward, and I've spent the last 10 months in my role here. So we're looking at providing rewarding recreational opportunities in facilities. We do that through an interconnected, highly accessible citywide recreational system, public, private amenities, indoor and outdoor recreation. So those are kind of some of the guiding principles that we're looking ahead with. I am often asked what the cost of benefits are. Recreational programming does not bring in enough funds to offset the operational cost. That doesn't mean there are not other benefits. So again, from our comprehensive plan, big reason people want to be in Nisswa is because of the outdoor recreation opportunities. It's a high priority, and this is something that we want to continue to look at, continue to grow and cultivate part of Nisswa's character. Other things that we're looking at are enhancing safety, reducing crime, community wellness and connectivity. Property values go up, we can conserve natural areas, and it has a large impact on tourism and the economic stimulus. So while we don't have always a direct correlation financially to the benefit, park and recreation and these services that we provide have a lot of intangible benefits, a little more abstract, but ultimately it's critical to the character of Nisswa. So some things that we've been working on, at least for a much longer time than I've been here, but while I've been here, we've obtained funding for the Gull Lake Trail. Wheels are in motion on that. We have obtained the tax forfeited parcels on Camp Lincoln Road. So that project is in its infancy stages. You guys have tasked us with coming up with the strategic plans. We've been looking at our infrastructure needs. And then with the budget review and the strategic plan, we are assessing our long-range capital improvements. So next slide. With those things in mind and our guiding principles from our mission and vision, things that we want to look at and what I've incorporated into our budget for this year and looking beyond. The Park and Rec Commission determined that it is imperative that we maintain and protect what we have. So that is creating baseline preventative maintenance. We need to start putting money aside and planning for future projects, as well as taking care of ones that we've been putting off. We need to begin putting aside funding for the Camp Lincoln project. I put some money aside for that in 2022's budget. We do have a 4-year time frame on building that area out. Also looking at doing a feasibility study for the skating and hockey rink replacement. And the grander plan would be to kind of look at a park recreation, open space, citywide trail master plan, getting all of these different entities to be a cohesive flowing system. So that's kind of where I went leading into the budget here. I will flip over back into our documents that were provided, looking at the capital improvement plan summary. Mine is extremely different than everyone else's. So scary enough, little insight into how my brain works. Tried to break it down so you guys can find a way to read it too. Starting in my role here, I just started putting down everything that I could learn, how much it costs, who my person is to talk to for repairs, all of that. So this was started as just my running to-do list, but I find it very helpful to plan from it as well. So many things that are in here are just general things that I have to remember year over year. Most of it's included in our repairs and maintenance. But under 2022, I did highlight the items that are put in the budget. Most of them are in the capital portion. So we have 2 different budgets that we're looking at. We have the Parks and Recreation budget and the Community Center budget. Questions on this? So there's a lot of areas and a lot of things under each area. And the vast majority of it is just my to-do list. The supporting documents here, we'll go into more detail as to what is highlighted for 2022. So if we go start with the community center budget, not a whole lot is different on that one in terms of what we're expecting for revenues. The biggest change is under the expenditures, under the capital improvements. So you have a supporting long-range infrastructure plan that kind of details out what that is. We're looking at replacing an air conditioning unit and a furnace. Both of those have surpassed their replacement cycle. We are currently needing to replace 25 chairs and looking at the future, replacing additional chairs and tables. So that the tables and chairs have now a year-over-year plan, replacement plan in the capital improvement. So looking at replacing 5 tables and 25 chairs year-over-year. And beginning to put some money aside towards some bathroom updates. So there's a little bit of past maintenance needs, some current maintenance needs, and planning for future maintenance needs, all in the community center.
For the community center, the income that we receive from renting it out and whatever else, is it a money losing proposition? The expenses are greater than the income?
In my very short window of time here, I would venture to say that that would be accurate. We do, hard to say with like COVID, and we've had everyone rebook this, many rebooked this year. So we've been doing very well, I would say, this year in terms of our rentals. How that will look going forward is kind of tough to predict, but I'd say as a general rule, looking at some of the updates and stuff that will need to be done, it will be challenging to bring in enough through private rentals to offset that. Not in here, Maggie and I are going to be looking at our rental agreement and to see what improvements we can make there as well.
And I would add, Don, that yes, I would agree with your question or statement, because there's always been at least a small amount of transfer that the city makes into the community center to balance the budget. So this is a little bit more than normal historically, because as Amber's explained, there's some repairs and some things that need to be done. But yes, if we're having to fill the gap, then that means that, you know, the revenue coming in isn't, it just, you know, is what it is, just based on the activity that we have for the department.
Amber, do you see us being able to, well, two things. What has to happen to make it break even? How do you make it break even? What would we have to do to make it break even, be more of a venue where people want to show up? And I'm going to get ahead of you, but when you start looking at the park overall, is there a way to incorporate fixing or updating or upgrading what we can offer that could then bring people into using the community center as well as other park amenities at the same time?
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's a big piece of what I'm going to talk about next.
Okay.
So yeah, I think there are certain things that we can do. When you look at the community center, in large part, it's used for local nonprofits. That is one of our most common rentals. And so with that, there's some things that we might be able to do. I mean, we want to keep it available for them. That's the goal. But we don't want to drain and deplete all of our resources at that expense. And then I think looking at some of the updates that we could potentially do might make it a more attractive wedding venue, shower venue, graduation party venue. So if we can get some of these updates likely it'll be more enticing to rent it as well. So. Any other questions on community center? Cool. All right, on to the parks budget. Couple of things that I want to just highlight on this one. It was determined that the golf carts were going to fall under Parks and Recreation. So a golf cart fee line item was added into revenue. Few different things. We don't have any fundraisers planned for next year. And I don't typically put in a large amount for contributions and donations, as those are not a guarantee. So I don't want to be reliant on that number. We also added a 3-year cycle for advertising and sponsorships. So there's going to be a little more up and down to that number over the years. It was pretty popular actually with the addition, and that'll free up some of my time. So I'm not having to do that year over year, track everyone down. So those are some of the differences on the revenue side. If you go ahead down to expenditures, a couple things. Again, just a little bit how my mind works, move some money from repairs and maintenance to operating supplies, just so how I operate, and where I think it best fits. So that's one of the big changes there. Started adding some funding for professional services to go over Camp Lincoln as we get rolling on that project. Some additional money for school and training, as that number was fairly low. Doesn't cover the cost of, the annual conference. So looking at capital, that line item, you guys have some supporting sheets for that. One, the truck, we have 6,500 remaining on that next year. We owe 10,000 this year, and then the 6,500 is the remaining balance next year. Planning for Camp Lincoln, or whatever we determined to call that, that project, started putting funding in year over year, looking at professional services. And then under the capital improvement portion, putting funding in for the parking lot, the bathroom, we need to put a pit toilet in there, and that's about 25,000. And then putting some funding in for tree clearing and the creation of that. So just starting to set some money aside year over year as we get going on that project. And then the last big item that we need to talk about, I don't have a cost associated with it for what we're proposing. The memo that I gave you in your packet there is proposing that we begin a feasibility study for the skating and hockey rink. John, to your point, my ultimate goal, I think we would want to look at the entire park as a cohesive unit. But if you guys, Kiki, if we can flip back to the PowerPoint. The Park and Rec Commission would like to do a feasibility study looking at including a roof, prices for the chiller system, concrete, skating rink boards, and lighting. Up one more. Two more, I mean. Whoop. One more. All right, so that's the aerial photo of City Park right now. Like my sound effects, you don't even need them. So all of City Park is the ball field, the community center, the playground, softball field, hockey rink, and skating rink with the warming house, and then multiple garages. That's all included on the property. Specifically, to go ahead, the skating rink, as we look at that one, and the hockey rink. So when I say there's safety concerns, this is what I'm looking at. On the left side, those are holes in the plastic boards of the skating rink. So they function to hold the water and ice. But clearly those are some holes. So if a kid trips and tries to catch themselves, that's where the safety concern is coming into play. The other side is concrete. So we guesstimate there's about 4 to maybe 6 years left in the lifespan of this concrete. You can see that patchwork has been done, but those are several locations throughout the rink, to give you an example of what it actually looks like out there. So I know you're gonna ask cost estimate. These are numbers that I've received some tentative quotes on from various vendors. Cost of replacing the skating rink as it currently stands. We would need $10,000 to repair the chiller system and get that operable. The estimate ballpark on lighting is about $25,000 a rink to retrofit the lights. That's a safety concern. Some of the lights are not turning on all the time. Pucks fly at a very fast speed. And so that's why they need to be able to have good lighting to pick up the puck. Skating rink boards, you guys saw that one, safety concern, depending on the material that we'd look to replace it with. Looking at anywhere from 25 to 50,000. We did receive a quote for 50,000, which would be a permanent board system like the hockey rink. It's just a lower quality board. And then the Zamboni, looking at maintenance on that one, the Zamboni is older than I am. They generally have a very good lifespan, but we're running into the time now where they don't make replacement parts for it anymore. So when we're needing repairs, might not have those things readily available for it. So if I was going to ballpark the replacement cost for exactly what we have right now, looking at it about 180 to 300,000 guesstimate. If you go to the other side, looking at improvements, new chiller system is 225 to 250,000. Keeping all the other numbers the same and looking at the addition of a roof.
Can
So I
ask-
know,
I just want to ask one question. The chiller system,
yes,
is that a new chiller system
yes,
that we currently have though?
no,
Okay, was it new when we got it?
no.
No.
No, it wasn't.
Okay,
It was
used
30
system.
years old when we got it.
How many years old?
It was old. It was old. Came out, I don't remember where it came out of, but it was,
The other thing too is, do you know if the chiller system piping, is that under the concrete or in the concrete?
It is in the concrete.
So if I look at that if I'm getting out, I know how much it costs to replace concrete, and if the pipes are inside the concrete and we're doing to fix what we have right now, if we cut into any of those pipes, then all that piping will have to be replaced, won't it?
Well, and
Or
if you're gonna redo
repair.
the concrete, you'd want to do the piping anyways.
But I mean, on
Um,
the fix-it side,
Yeah, if we were on a fix-it side, you'd have to be, yes, strategic. I'm not an expert in
so that
concrete.
number on the fix-it side could change if the piping is,
Yes, all the numbers can change, for better, for worse, higher and lower.
okay,
This is my best guess. This concrete is also not your normal concrete that you're gonna pour a sidewalk.
Right.
It's not the same concrete.
right?
in your concrete numbers, and I know they're kind of loose, but you're planning for the new piping within them numbers.
That would be my recommendation. So if we are gonna pour an entirely new slab of concrete, at that time, we need to figure out if we are gonna include a chiller system, because we're not gonna do it after we pour new concrete.
No, and we're not gonna
Right.
try to.
No.
Yeah,
Okay.
No, I agree. Okay.
So, yeah, just trying to go for comparison's sake here. What fixing our chiller system to get it operable would be 10,000. An entirely new chiller system is 225 to 250,000. I don't,
How long will you get out of the $10,000 fix?
no idea. We've been putting that in year over year.
Okay,
So I don't know if this will be the time that it holds or if there'll be another fail safe that kicks in again.
Well-
Very difficult to say. The regulations on cooling agents are also changing. So while this is an approved environmentally safe agent, doesn't mean that it will stay that way
Got it.
as laws and regulations evolve.
One
Well-
quick question on the chiller system you're looking at here. Is that just hypothetical? Would that be able to chill more than one sheet of ice?
I do not know. I just asked for a quick ballpark estimate on a new chiller system. So my guess would be one rink, but
Yep.
I'm sure there's things they can do to make it
Okay.
two. Obviously, there's new technology and a variable flow versus 100% on or 100% off would also be helpful.
Yeah. Covered, not covered. I don't know.
And so, yeah, for comparison's sake, the additional item that has been kicked around for years and years and years that we would like to do a feasibility on is the addition of a roof. So several things with a roof. It's gonna protect the ice quality during the winter. It's gonna protect the quality of the concrete in the summer. Makes the area a little bit more multifunctional. And from there, I'm not an engineer, but there's things that we would need to consider. The placement of the actual rink, and details, so on and so forth from there. But looking at the improvement side of things with the addition of a roof and a brand new chiller system, you're looking closer to the 880,000 to 1.3 million.
Amber, just, I think you've hit the big issue here. How much income, excuse me, my voice is going again. How much income do we get from renting the ice rink and stuff like that?
There's not a lot of rental that happens. There's a couple community
So-
enthusiasts that want it. So most of the revenue that we get is from recreational programming.
So basically, we don't get any income, basically.
We get about $2,000 in recreational programming and a couple hundred in concessions.
And you look at the cost to keep the thing going, replace and remove, and when I look at numbers like that, I always look on the high side, figuring that they're always going to be higher than what I thought. I'll just use $500,000, let's just say it's going to cost to fix it up. Is that a good use of money for an ice skating rink?
The Park and Rec Commission has tossed this around over several months now. I took them through a series of exercises to try and determine what our most pressing infrastructure needs are and what we want that to look like going forward for the next 20, 30, 40 years. We decided, they received the same 4 options that I think I presented to you guys at one point of, do we keep it? Do we build a roof? Like everything in between, trying to narrow it down. The Parks and Rec Commission determined that it was a valuable service we provide to the community, and they do not want to see the rink disappear. So from there, then we have options as to how much we want to invest in it. How much does the community want to
But
invest?
how many people use it during the year?
Well, right now, there's no
Right.
real summer usage.
No, I understand.
So it's pretty
I'm talking winter, yeah.
In the winter, this was our first year of adding an adult pond hockey, so we were able to have 3 different pond hockey teams. Looking at bringing back a learn to skate. I might possibly have an instructor for that one, maybe some figure skating lessons programs. So we have some options of adding a few programs. It does not cover the cost by any means. But with looking at a roof, we're looking at multi-seasonal, multifunctional, and it would preserve the life of the concrete. So instead of doing the concrete again in 20 years,
So,
you know, it might be 40 or 50 years out. So it's trying to navigate the cost
But-
benefit
but
that you guys always ask.
if you were to put a roof over it, okay, multi-seasonal, I understand that. So if I understand right now, coming from a hockey area, if I was with one of the old timers leagues up there, saw that concrete, saw a picture of the concrete before the ice was on, I wouldn't want to rent it anymore. I know there's our rental fees for it. For we're new ice, yeah, then I would be willing to pay rentals on that, but is that a possibility that there might attract more? To find out how many people are actually using the rink in the winter, I mean, we don't have anybody there with a clicker, do we? I've been here at 11 o'clock at night and seen a bunch of kids out skating. So I mean, we can't put a number on it, can we?
We try and hand tally it. We averaged last year, and mostly this is who comes into the warming house. And last year was a unique year where we limited how many people came in, but we were averaging 21 people a day last season. So while like financially, it's pretty hard to program wise make up any sort of difference on this. It's kind of what's the benefit to the community? What's the draw to the community? How much time are they spending in the community? It's one of the few things that they can participate in the winter. And when we move on to summer, you're preserving the life of the concrete and with the potential to add other programs in there. And I could start rattling off some, but it just offers flexibility in what we can offer, since we don't really have many facilities to use. We only have the event center and then picnic shelters.
So if you were to go by the recommendation of the Parks and Rec to replace and roof, do you see a potential for an increase in revenue?
I think that's definitely a potential. It's hard to gauge what exactly that would be, but I think it would provide opportunity for additional rentals, being it's multi-seasonal, multifunctional.
And I understand when this stuff kind of happens, I mean, you're not going to have a direct benefit or increase from it itself. I mean, that's external with an increase of tourism.
Right. Yeah, so the Park and Recs Commission is to just begin a feasibility study, not commit to building anything out. We just want to, we don't even know if it's possible to put a roof on it.
Yeah.
And what that structure would actually be, how would that work? Is it going to fit there? Do we need to move it? And my last point on there is a cohesive design. So John, that was to your point of what does City Park actually look like? We talked about kind of looking at phases of the hockey rink, but do we want to add in pickleball? Do we have space for pickleball? Do we need to rotate anything, move anything, update the park? How do we make it a cohesive, functioning space? Multi-use, multifunctional, multi-ability, are kind of all things looking at taking this initial step of a feasibility on just the hockey rink and ultimately looking at the entire space as a whole.
What's that lower center picture with the two people?
So you have a upper picture of with a roof, one style of roof, many, many options. The lower picture where they're skating, that is a skate track. So also another viable option in my non-engineering opinion or maintenance opinion, a skate track. So that's what's in the diagram there. Instead of a skating rink, it's a path that you skate.
Oh,
So it could,
so we have two rinks right now and this is your vision or the grand plan?
It's an option to explore.
Right. So an option to explore today, having two, you'd have one rink with a roof and then you said a skating track.
Yep. And a skating rink might be the better option. A skating track might be a better option. These are all things that the feasibility study and coming up with a cohesive design for the park would hopefully encompass all of that and what, price point, community need, what works, what doesn't.
I think that on a cost benefit basis, you're going to run into a problem here. But I shouldn't say this, but it's going on the record. The picture on the right, you have a pathway for skating.
Mhm.
Think summer instead of winter.
I got my rollerblades on already, Don.
No, not rollerblades.
I'm rollerblading.
You fill it with water and you sell tickets to all the people who come to visit Nisswa. It's a lazy river.
Lazy
It's a
river.
Water slide.
Ooh.
Thinking
You're
cap.
spending some money, but you're getting a lot of revenue in during the summer.
Oh, yeah, wow.
Just a thought.
That's from you, Don?
Yes. I knew that would perk you up, but.
Well, looking at
don't
that,
mind-
that
don't
didn't
mind
even come to
spending
mind
money
looking
if
at that
there's Some way
picture.
to recoup some of
Totally.
the money and get it to pay for itself and be an attraction that is not really available in the area.
Definitely. Yes, so the
Ah.
initial proposal is to begin this process of determining
So feasibility.
feasibility.
Okay.
What can we do? Where are we going from here?
What kind of costs would be involved in the feasibility?
Good guess. I don't
Okay,
That would
So
be
it'd be
the
something
question.
you'd look at,
That's
yeah.
my
Yeah.
first step.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Park, rec, community center? Rink,
Water park.
water park?
I think what we'll do, if it works for the council, just on this question specifically, is we'll bring back kind of the request for a feasibility study, at least for the 31st. So you'd have, and then we could push it to the September meeting to keep that conversation going. That makes sense? Like we'll try to fine tune her memo in terms of a council action. If
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Great.
I like that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Well done, Amber. I like that. I like the visuals. It gives me a context.
All right. Hopefully it works over here. Maybe. Find it. Oh, I'm probably. no.
Tom's not gonna like me tonight with all my garbage going over to his side.
Gotta find the right screen. Okay. So I'm gonna cover a handful of administrative, clerk, finance, kind of citywide budget department areas and talk about some strategic plan items. So here we go. So there are the 6 departments we'll go through. The first one is clerk finance, really encompassing all of the administrative staff perspective on the budget. It reflects a 10.5% increase. Pretty much all of it is just encompassing the wages for next year with the COLA and the steps and the market adjustment. There are a couple of small minor plus 1,000, minus 1,000 things, really minor in the scheme of things, but that's really all that that the department changes is just relating to wages. I know it's not very interesting or exciting, but we're just maintaining the same level of training, making sure we, go to as they start back up again, conferences and things like that next year in person, I should say, kind of operations as usual. Any questions on that one? Relating to clerk and finance though, and I didn't say, sorry. So the far right 3 columns are the ones where we'll have the 2022 proposed budget and then the increase and decrease from the current year budget. So as we go through the next handful of them, that's probably the areas that you'll want to focus. Actually, though, before I go in mayor and council, so our capital improvement plan for our clerk finance department is pretty simple. We have computers on here. We have a 4-year rotation for staff, 1 new computer a year, barring that, something doesn't break and we need to purchase something. But we do have 4 computers for Maggie, Kiki, and myself, plus an extra one that's in the front area too. So we have a backup in case someone needs to borrow a computer. So that's really all that we include in our capital improvement at this point. Okay, so mayor and council budget for next year. The only change really is just because I like to round number. So I made the pay line for the mayor and council $25,000. Just we've been having a few more meetings and things like that this year. And I thought that would just cover us, make sure we've got that taken care of. Otherwise, we do have a transportation budget. So if you travel somewhere and you have mileage, and we have a school training budget. So I will just plug that. Please feel free if you see some training. I do send some things your way on occasion to take advantage of that and to not shy away from that if you'd like to do that. We haven't historically used that very much. So that is there for you to use as you need. Any questions on that budget? The next 2 I put on one slide. So our accounting and our city attorney fees. Our accounting fees, usually there's a small increase every year just for inflation. We do have a little bit of a larger increase for 2022 because we will have that single audit, which is an additional kind of small audit that is a part of the regular annual audit we do because of our sewer expansion project, and that we are receiving monies above $750,000. So we are required to do that, and it does cost a few $1,000s extra. So that is what the increase in our accounting budget is for. And then for our city attorney budget, year to date on the far right, it's kind of small. We have spent just under $30,000. We've had a lot of things happening this year. Not that it happens this year is, necessarily reflective of every year, but I do feel as though we need to increase our attorney budget. So I went from 25,000 to 35,000 for next year. Can always be modified later in the year as we finalize our budget a little closely, but I just wanted to include that at this point because we have been using our attorney. Some of the issues have just become more complicated and more legal expertise required. And so that's part of that. Any questions on the accounting or attorney budgets? Okay. Economic development. So this includes our contributions to the Initiative Foundation and to BLADEC, Brainerd Lakes Area Economic Development Corporation. And so there's usually small increases every year. I think this is $155 over the 2021 numbers. But it's just they send us their contribution amount and we've continued to contribute to those organizations. And I think we'd like to continue to do that. They do provide great services to our businesses in the area and service to the city when and if we need it. So that is there. And elections, we will have an election in 2022. So we put back our budget from 2020. I did account for a small increase, just estimates at this time. We went from 4,000 to we spent 4,000 in 2020, so I budgeted 4,600 at this time.
How much do we pay the people who work the elections here?
Election judges. Oh, let me think. Is it 12? Okay, $12 an hour.
I'm just wondering if that's enough to get enough people
Yeah.
involved.
Great question. Yeah, hopefully with a little bit of additional money there, that's certainly something we try to through the county. They poll everybody and they see where everyone's at. So you kind of know if you're falling behind, but it might be up to 15.
We can pay whatever we feel like.
Yes, yeah.
I'm just suggesting that
It,
$12 is not
the
sufficient.
increase didn't help where my dad's a polling judge. I still can't get people.
No, and most people do it because they want to participate in the process and just be a part of that more so from the money, but it's nice when you get a decent rate, so. And our unallocated account, this is somewhat of a catch-all for things that aren't specific to any one department. The increase, the only increase I note in this department is for insurance. I don't have our property liability rates yet for next year, so I did just round it to $50,000 in that line item. It's a substantial increase, 31%, but I just wanted a placeholder, at least for now. We are seeing our, rates continue to go up, cost to insure and things like that. So I want to make sure we're covered there. Otherwise, everything else is the same. We continue the donations to civic organizations is our donation to the Nisswa Library that has been in place for many years, and we continue to have a line item for that. Any questions on that budget? Okay, great. So some of the strategic plan items that I've been kind of putting together on paper as we move through this process as well with the budget. So I have a couple items in your packet regarding long-range infrastructure plan. As all the departments have been sharing with you throughout their budget presentations, really creating that 10-year capital improvement plan for their departments, for their equipment, their buildings, things like that. So that is something that I want to document and note that we are doing across all departments. Some will be a little bit more detailed than others, at least for this year, but we will keep building upon that. And hopefully in a few years, we'll have a really good, robust plan for all departments so we can properly plan for improvements as we need. This comes at really no cost to the city. It's, it's a lot of staff time and work involved with that, but it's something that we can move forward with having a good plan. And I think that helps keep everybody kind of on the same page with what we're doing. This 20-year, so the other long-range infrastructure plan idea I have relates to something Brittany was talking about earlier with her downtown signage, but is to develop a 20-year downtown Nisswa comprehensive plan. So it's kind of a mini comp plan within the citywide comprehensive plan. In my conversations with the chamber over the past handful of years, there have been questions that have come up along with just inquiries from the public. So things from signage, sound system to ADA questions, parking, all kinds of different needs and changing trends we're seeing with how downtown areas are being used by the public. And the question that I keep going back to is, I don't want to say, we invest money into signage and then find out it's not the signage preferable by the businesses, or we put it in the wrong place and it could have been better over here. I want to look at it, from a really big picture perspective. I mean, and this even goes to directions of the roads, using the alleyways. How can we really look at those areas that maybe we haven't looked at to say, what is that 20-year vision for Nisswa? So that is something that I keep coming back to. I've talked to the chamber about, they love the idea. How do we potentially start a conversation like that? And so I certainly would look to your input at some point if that's something you feel would be valuable and that would be, helpful for the city, get everybody's input. Again, it would take, a long time, and I'd want to hire someone to do what they did with the comprehensive plan, was to have the public engagement meetings and things like that as well. So any questions or? Well, the only reason I put that was I was just thinking time frame for figuring out exactly what we wanted, getting an RFP out for a consultant, just trying to be realistic about the time frame. And well, you probably want to hit summer, really, to get the feedback and the input. So potentially that could be a next summer project if the council was interested in that. So that is an idea that I have that we can keep kicking around. The second strategic plan item was policy and ordinance synchronization. So both of these, I think, would be great systems to implement. That would be a 3-year policy review process and a 5-year ordinance review process. So what I mean is we would basically take all of the city policies we have and we would, let's say, divide them in thirds. And we would review a third of them every year and make sure that we don't go longer than 3 years without somebody taking a look at them to make sure that the language reflects current department practice, if there's any statute updates, things like that. There's a few different ways we can accomplish that internally, but then it means that we just don't lose sight of some of those policies that sit and we don't get to look at them for a long time. Same thing with our ordinances. If we have a 5-year rotation, then hopefully we're using that time to make sure that we're current on legislation, meeting the community's needs that will change as well. And so if there's opportunities for a certain ordinance that we want, some public comment on this, we can put that on our website. Hey, we're reviewing this chapter, or even a section within the chapter. When I think of the zoning ordinance, that's a lot. So that might get broken up into chunks as well. Something that I think would be helpful. So that would be 2 things that don't cost any money, but that hopefully would get us on a rotation to ensure that our documents are current and, we're making sure that they're working for us as they should be.
Jenny, are you suggesting that this starts in 2024?
2024 for the ordinances because we are nearing the end of our codification. Yes,
Okay.
so we've done a very comprehensive review of everything. There are some things we said, we'll get to that, but nothing major. So thought we'll take a break, see what's working for us, and then start that in a couple of years. Okay. Employee retention and satisfaction plan, and I just want to find the right slide. So our compensation study, when the city adopted the compensation study in 2016, implemented the new pay scales and everything in 2017, there was then the idea that let's review it every 5 years. And we've gone through that process now as we're working it out with the budget. And I think everyone has sort of realized that 5 years is too long. We've talked about a 2-year cycle or a 3-year cycle. And I thought about it a lot. I certainly take the council's input into consideration at some point. I think we want to just give everybody an understanding of what the expectation is for going forward. And I think I've landed on every 3 years. 2 years just goes by so quickly. But I don't certainly want it to get as far as we did because we needed to make adjustments. So I think if we can set some expectations that will really help staff for, planning purposes and all of that as well. Operations efficiency plan. I don't have anything put together on this one, in part because I wanted to see kind of what the focuses were for all the departments and how we can kind of achieve some efficiencies, opportunities. Was mentioned at our last workshop with Public Works was just for an example, like Public Works and Parks have been talking about if there's opportunities to, share staff or responsibilities and things. So that'd be a great example of operations efficiency. But as we're still just trying to develop that, I have to be determined. We'll keep working on that and see where we can go with that one. And then the last one is the safety plan. As I mentioned in June, I think a significant improvement for all city buildings would be to install a new electronic key system. In your packet for the regular meeting tonight, there's a proposal to do a city hall facility study that would include security measures within that. And what I'm hoping to do is take that one piece specifically and then see how we can apply it to all city buildings. But I think that that would be a big improvement for us, especially at City Hall with a lot of public coming in and out, and ensuring that the building is secure and that we, you know, have easy access and making sure that the right people are only in the right places and things like that. So that is something that I'm hopeful we can do next year. And then creating a safety training program citywide. There are some departments that are really good at this, in part because the system is set up specifically for those types of departments and employees. And they're also required certain trainings more robustly than other departments and staff. But I think that'd be really important. This has sort of been on my radar for a while, and we just need to get to it. So I want to make sure that we can do that in a way that we can either capture training online when available for staff, or if we have to do in-person training, that we can manage that well. So we don't have to, you know, shut down the building to do staff training. If we can, you know, take turns and do other things, that we have some options there.
Now, some of the money from the COVID relief funds, recovery
Yep.
funds, should possibly be available to assist with that.
For
Safety, the building security.
buildings, yes, I was going to say not probably so much training, but infrastructure within the building. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then how about for like computers and stuff? So that you can maintain the ability to remote in for work, those kinds of things. I read what we got,
Yep.
but it's mud.
Yeah, it's very complex.
And yeah, so I was just, okay.
Yep. And we are in a good position individually as staff now with laptops and things like that. So yes, we are mobile. We are able to do that. Yes. Improved technology with regards to public access. Let's say there were additional things in the council chambers we wanted to add. Certainly that would be something it could be used for.
Mr. Chair.
Yep. Mhm. No, there's an opening for papers and no. That's part of the facility study. We will, yes. Okay. Okay, yep.
A two-part question.
Okay.
Based upon what you know right now with the budget, what would be your best guess as to percentage increase for next year over this year?
Oh, I have not looked at it in total for good reason, because I knew there would be a lot.
Okay. Okay, then the second.
that's coming, yes.
My second
Yep.
part is that as we look at the activities that we're supposed to buy vehicles for next year and whatever, is there anything that we can move forward into this year? There's enough money in budgets. It's not going to be spent for anything else. Let's move some stuff in so we can lower the cost in next year.
That's a great suggestion, and we're hitting on about that time as we get out through the summer. Usually things start to slow down and we can somewhat predict. So I think that would be a great thing for me to ask from department heads to say if there are things that aren't really large items next year, if we can get them done this year, then we should take that opportunity. So we'll look at that and bring that back as part of the next workshop. Sorry, that's all I had.
Thank you.
So what we will do for the next workshop is we will summarize all of the, I'm just going to call them additions to department budgets. So you can see kind of the list of things. Some departments had, staffing, some had equipment, some, those types of things. So you can see the list and we can work through what we anticipate to see from a property tax or property value change, as we talked about that briefly, but it's been a while, and kind of go from there. So we'll try to step you through those pieces. Hopefully, The goal would really be to get council direction to say, what do you want to prioritize? So that we can start to move things around. If, you know, if we need to push things to 2023 or beyond, we can work on that and bring you a preliminary budget and levy for the September meeting. So,
Very good.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Let me know if you have questions in the meantime.
Okay. Well, then we are done with our agenda.
We are done, yes.
So if we want, we can
Move adjourned.
motion to adjourn.
Yep.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Adjourn.